puff one time and I puff twice. On and on and on, and you know why. I puff one time and I puff twice. I puff one time and I puff twice. I puff one time and I puff twice. On and on and on, and you know why. I puff one time and I puff twice. I puff one time and I puff twice.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, whenever you may be tuning in, to all my fellow stackers, investors, preppers, collectors, and citizens around the world. This is Expat Stacker coming to you all the way from South Korea. That was Smokin' Dreams by Korean group Jazzy Fact. I hope you've all been enjoying your weekend, and thank you for joining me again in the new time slot for this show on Sundays. This week's show will be slightly shorter than usual, and next week I will be taking off for family reasons. Remember that this show and my other podcast style show called The Silvercast with fellow YouTuber Silver Conundrum are available on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, and various other platforms. Links are in the description. If you're a returning listener, then welcome back, and if this is your first time joining, welcome to the weekly Restack. In this show, I summarize and review the news of the past week in the following format. First, a quick 5-minute market recap of financial markets. Then 5 to 10 minutes of finance/bullion related news. After that, we move on to a few minutes of world news and current events, and then we finish off the show with stacking community news and notes. Can't cover all the news, but I try to get to as much as I can. My only objective is to help keep anyone who wants to listen as informed as possible. I try to be as neutral and impartial as I can, although nothing is ever truly 100% impartial. I aim to give you the facts and information, and it's up to you to decide what you think about it. Please leave your thoughts, comments, criticisms, feedback, questions, and suggestions in the comments section. So without further ado, let's get into this past week's news in the 10th weekly Restack show. In the metals markets, gold closed this week up just under 0.25% at $1,734.82 an ounce. Silver finished down this week compared to last week by about 0.5% at $24.94 per ounce. Platinum was up this week, finishing up 2.13% at $1,209.70 an ounce. Copper was also up this week by about 0.41% from last week to finish off at $4.01 per pound. Oil was up just over 5% this week, finishing at $61.08 per barrel. Bitcoin is up this week by 8.65% at just over $58,684. Ethereum rallied this week by just over 10% and is currently around $2,012. XRP is up this week compared to last week by about 3.5% and is currently around 59 cents. Major Wall Street indices, the Dow, S&P 500, and Nasdaq all gained this week, with the Dow closing up 1.11%, S&P closing up 2.36%. Meanwhile, the Nasdaq fared the best this week, finishing up 3.65%. Asia Pacific markets followed Wall Street this week, with the Kospi in South Korea finishing this week up by 2.53% and Japan's Nikkei 225 up by 1.38%. European markets finished mostly up this week as well by 1.5%. The US dollar was up this week by 0.27% and finished this week at the 93.011 handle. Investors and businesses around the world took a collective sigh of relief as the Suez Canal was unblocked after previous concerns that it may be blocked for several weeks. Let's now turn to precious metals and finance-related news. United States Mint, American Eagle, and Buffalo Bullion product sales figures for March 2021 were released, giving us the information to compare this year's sales trends as well as compare the first quarter of 2021 with the first quarter of 2020. Here is some comparative statistical analysis of those numbers. American Gold Eagle sales were 55,500 ounces in March 2021, marking 55.8% decline from February 2021 sales of 125,500 ounces. March 2021 American Gold Eagle sales were down 63.4% compared to sales from March 2020 of 151,500 ounces. However, for the first fiscal quarter of 2021, American Gold Eagle sales are at 401,500 ounces, which is 83.8% higher than the 218,500 ounces sold during the first quarter of 2020. American Gold Buffalo coin sales were 32,500 ounces in March 2021, up 103.1% from the sales of 16,000 ounces in February 2021. March 2021's Gold Buffalo sales, however, were 50.4% lower than the sales of 65,500 ounces in March 2020. American Gold Buffalo sales for 2021 so far sit at 110,000 ounces, which is 25.7% higher than the 87,500 ounces sold in the first quarter of 2021. American Silver Eagle coin sales for March 2021 were 3,302,000 ounces, up 3.5% from the 3,191,500 ounces sold in February 2021. Compared to the sales of 5,482,500 ounces sold in March 2020, the sales figures for March 2021 were down 39.8%. American Silver Eagle sales through the first quarter of 2021 are at 11,268,500 ounces, which is 12.9% higher than the 9,978,500 coins sold through the same period in 2020. American Platinum Eagle coins registered a first quarter total of 35,000 ounces, all from their debut release in March. Last year's edition logged March sales of 31,200 ounces. The U.S. economy created the most jobs in 7 months in March as more Americans got vaccinated. The government doled out additional pandemic relief money, making the start of what could be the strongest economic performance this year in nearly 4 decades. Leading the gains in employment was the leisure and hospitality sector, which was followed by government and then construction. As mentioned in the opening of the show, the Ever Given, which was one of the world's largest cargo container ships and weighed nearly 200,000 tons, was freed this week after it had been blown off course by strong winds while passing through the Suez Canal in Egypt. The hull of the ship had gotten lodged onto the side of the canal and became stuck. Concerns that it would take several weeks to dislodge the ship were relieved, and global businesses reacted in kind. Now let's move on to general news and current events. It's been reported that Republican U.S. Congressional Representative of Florida's 1st Congressional District, Matt Gaetz, has been under investigation for the past 6 months for child sex trafficking charges. Mr. Gaetz denied the allegations recently on an appearance on Fox News' Tucker Carlson's TV show. As was reported in last week's Restack show, police in the southwestern British city of Bristol began making arrests late on Friday, March 26th, after protests turned violent, with police accusing protesters of throwing projectiles at them. Tens of thousands of demonstrators have begun protesting throughout England, Wales, and Northern Ireland, with protesters rallying behind the cry, "Kill the bill," in reference to a government bill going through Parliament that would give police new powers to restrict street protests. Dozens of police and protesters have been injured, and hundreds of arrests have occurred over the past week. An attack at the U.S. Capitol complex in Washington, D.C. has left one police officer dead and another in the hospital with injuries. A car crashed into a security barrier before the driver lunged towards the officers with a knife, police said. The officers opened fire and the suspect was shot dead on the scene. The officer who died in the line of duty was identified by Capitol Police as William Evans, who had been a member of the Capitol Police for 18 years and was part of the department's first responders unit. Now let's move on to community news and notes. A few days ago, I issued a 1,000 pieces of silver challenge to the stacking community, and already over a dozen channels have joined. Expat Stacker is going to be announcing a new challenge on his channel as well, so keep your eyes peeled for that. Inefficient Stacker has a GAW going on and has an epic response video to my 1,000 pieces of silver challenge video, which I directly challenged him, so you need to check that out if you haven't. I do apologize for the shortness of this week's show. I have some family obligations to take care of, and next week I'll also be off for the same reason. I hope you understand, and I hope you all had a wonderful weekend. Please leave your thoughts in the comment section, and I'll catch you in 2 weeks for the next weekly Restack.
아마도 저번에 어머니가 했던 걱정들이 틀린 게 없나 보네. 화살인 시간을 피하기가 어려워. 흘렸던 건 피 아닐까. 따가운 시선 것만이 찢어진 내 의지에 이제 와서 난 피하긴다. 수많은 더하기와 빼기 짝대기를